Okay, remember when I did this video about taxi music? And I said specifically that I thought it wasn't for me. And I thought if you had your own connections, it would be stupid to use taxi. That's kind of dumb. I mean, it's just kind of dumb, folks. Well, I have just a few days left on my membership. And believe it or not, I'm actually thinking about renewing for 2022. This video is going to be the reveal of whether I will or will not do taxi for another year, and I'm going to talk to somebody who's literally made his career doing this. Wait, there's no time for a logo. We got too much to do. Okay, so there are several segments of this video, and you need to watch them all because it will really inform you of how taxi really works. And stay to the end of the video because I'm going to reveal my decision for 2022 and my reasons for why or why I may not renew. So first, a little background. I joined taxi this time last year, and it was kind of an experiment that I was doing with something I call the Positive Spin Guild, which is a bunch of composers and clients that I have, and we meet weekly and talk about licensing things. And one of the things we were going to do was specifically try to put stuff into taxi on a monthly basis and see what kind of results it got as just an experiment to talk about with the group. Also in this group, we talk about general licensing things and stock licensing and all sorts of things. So if you're interested, there is a link below where you can email me about this, and there's information down there. Now, specifically, I wanted to use taxi to mostly write for new music briefs that they had going on every week. If you don't know what a brief is, it looks like this. They tell you someone is looking for something and exactly what the parameters are. So here's where my efforts with taxi fell down in 2021. I did submit to briefs, about 17 of them, which cost an additional $5 per. So on top of the $199 discounted subscription rate that I started on, I paid an additional $85 of fees. Now for 7 of those songs, I wrote specifically for the pitch, meaning I saw the pitch, I knew there was a date, and I wrote something, and I produced it, and I sent it in by that deadline. The other 11, I just submitted things that I thought were close that I had produced recently or years ago. And by the way, that never works, as you're going to hear in the interview. So first of all, I really didn't do what I said I was going to do. I actually said I was going to write 5 songs at least per month for pitches, specifically 4 pitches, produced new songs. And I didn't do that. My thought and my reasoning was, even if they didn't get forwarded by taxi to a library, to a catalog or something like that, that at least I could use that song in something else. I could pitch it somewhere else, or I could put it in stock music libraries, and that could start making money for me. As I said, I only wrote 7 songs for taxi briefs during my membership this year, and 3 of those I wrote recently. Of the 4 that I wrote before this month, only 1 was forwarded, and no response. But as you'll see in the interview, no response is pretty typical of a forward with taxi. So you're thinking, why would I want to do taxi? Well, hang on. What happened with the 4 songs is part of my decision for taxi for 2022. So we'll get to that towards the end of this video. Now, in my last review of taxi, which I still pretty much stand by, and you can see right here, I highlighted an interview taxi had done with a composer named Carrozza. And it literally took him years to get into the groove with taxi, at least 2 years of yearly fees and maybe 3. Greg had literally almost 100 forwards before he saw any kind of success through the taxi system. Greg actually commented on my original video and had some rebuttal for my video. It was very fair, and I thanked him for his comments. Now, in the recent Taxi Road Rally, which was an online event this year for taxi members only, and it was pretty good. He spoke again with Michael Laskow, the owner and founder of Taxi, and I decided to reach out and see if I could ask Greg some pointed questions on how exactly he has had success. This is really some inside stuff on how taxi works, so listen closely. I found some nuggets I haven't heard anywhere else. Let's get to the interview.
Greg! Greg! No, it's like this. Greg!
Well, I am excited to be here with Greg Carrozza. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Got it.
All right. And I've seen Greg, and probably you have too, if you have watched any taxi videos, including the Taxi Road Rally, which was just recently, which is always fun to get information from. And one of the things that I've enjoyed with Greg's interviews is his forthcoming knowledge and experience in submitting to taxi briefs and failing and failing and succeeding. And we're not going to talk so much about the failing and failing part, except for just a little bit, but we're going to talk about the succeeding part and how that's become a music income for him. You detail in a lot of your videos, and I'll probably go ahead and put those videos with you and Michael, especially the one that's public. I don't think the Road Rally one is public, but the first video that you have with Michael is pretty good about your experience with taxi and how you tried, like most of us have, when we join taxi, is just to throw anything we have sitting around at a brief. We see a brief, it says instrumental Q, and you go, oh, I've got something instrumental. And so you spend $5 and you send it to them. It took you a long time to figure that out. You probably wrung your hands for a year more trying to figure out why they weren't accepting those, or what?
Oh yeah, yeah, a good at least a year. Well, and I had a special case because I joined, and then really soon thereafter, my family made the decision to move across the country. So I kind of wasted the first year. I didn't really do
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
So I don't really even count that. So going into the second year after I moved, but I was still in the mindset of what you said, which is just kind of throw stuff at it and not really understanding how focused those things should be. And it took quite a while to really learn that.
When the light came on that I have to write specifically for the briefs, did you start pretty much only writing for briefs at that point specifically?
Yes. At first, even though I decided, like you said, the light goes on and you have to write for the briefs, but that still doesn't mean you come out with the right result.
Right.
So it still took some more time to really continually analyze, what I really needed to do to meet the briefs.
So what was the time frame from that point till where you started getting more consistent forwards, or at least what you felt was more
It
a
was
more
it was
acceptable number?
probably it was probably a good 6 to 9 months.
And I know when I watched your video, I'm thinking $5, $5, $5, $5 in my head when you're
Hmm.
talking about numbers of how many you submitted. I take it that you re-up with taxi every year and have no anticipation of stopping.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Uh,
And is
I
that because that's your main briefs that you write for, is taxi briefs?
I'm still I'm still continually looking for connections that are better places for specific types of things. So while I do get plenty of briefs directly from publishers I'm with now and write to them all the time, they usually ask me for things I've done before and that they know I do well. I'm still always looking for something better. And that's kind of what I hear from others that are in a similar position or actually further down the line and much more successful than I am, and why they stick with taxi.
And
So
do you pretty much, since you have taxi and you have these other relationships with publishers that came from getting forwards, do you spend any time going out and doing searches for yourself, for libraries and for contacts otherwise?
no, no, I don't
Okay.
usually find the time to do
Right.
that now because it's much easier to just when I'm not doing briefs directly for publishers. The next step is I just go back to taxi and see what's available there.
Well, I think that's a really big key. I mean, what Greg has done is found the way to write correctly for the briefs, and then had forwards, and then had relationships become because of those forwards that have lasted outside of taxi. In other words, you don't have to go back through taxi to send stuff to those guys. You can send it directly to those guys or
Hmm.
or gals, and you can work directly with these people. Let's talk some numbers here. How many briefs do you submit per taxi a month right now these days?
Yeah, I would say it's maybe
Okay.
8 to 10.
And what's your percentage of forwards, would you say?
It's about 60%.
It's pretty good. It's pretty
Yeah,
good. I think
I
anybody
mean,
would take 6 out of 10
yeah.
for those kind of things. Of the forwards, what's the percentage of ones you hear back on?
Wow, that's a great question. It's a small number.
25%, 40%,
No,
50%?
no, not even close.
Like 1 out of 10?
Yeah, maybe not even. I would
Wow.
say I've had over 200 forwards, and I got contacted by about a dozen publishers or so. And I have maybe 5 other deals that went through other people. So that's probably that's not even 10. That's not even 10%. That's getting closer to 5.
A lot of people may look at this and go, all right, I'm doing the math. 200 forwards, $5 a piece, $1,000. And
Yeah.
I've maybe heard from a dozen. What they're not understanding is, though, of those dozen, have there been a good number of placements through those dozen?
Oh,
Of
absolutely. So now over a period of 2.5 years, I have nearly 500 tracks signed
Okay.
across all of those publishers.
That's where the numbers change a
40
little
something.
bit.
It's a slow curve. So, I see placements of like from the first 100, 150, and as time goes on, that continues to snowball. So out of maybe the first 150, I've had 50 of them placed across 100 or so shows. So that $1,000 has been way, way more recouped. It just takes a lot more time.
That's very, very good knowledge to have, because that helps me make a decision about taxing. I think it will help other people make a decision about taxing. What people don't understand is you could pay $200, whatever, and you could spend $1,000 going to South by Southwest and staying in a hotel and going to this thing and having meetings with people, and then going to other trips to LA or to New York or wherever, and pitching and all that kind of stuff, and easily spend the same amount for a dozen relationships that turn into 500 placements. Do these publishers that are not taxi that you're getting briefs from, do they send you briefs of what they're looking for, or do they just come to you because they know you do a certain thing?
It's really all across the board. Sometimes some publishers will just send out a brief to everyone that's in their
Right.
catalog at all.
Sure, like a mailing list or something.
Right. So, and sometimes it is a little more targeted. Maybe they'll send it out to 20 or 25 people that they know do a specific thing. And sometimes I have been asked a few times to do something specifically because of something I had done in the past.
I think the really key part of this interview is what you just said a while back about how many placements you've gotten. Yeah, it may seem like a small amount of forwards for that much money to some people, but you have to look at what it's brought in the back end. It's like a funnel. It's like this, and then it's like this, and then it's like this. It was a lot of money spent, a lot of time spent, and then a very few results, but then those results blossomed into lots of possibilities and continued possibilities for you with those libraries and or catalogs or whatever they are. Well, man, thank you so much for your time today. It was nice to meet you, and your wisdom is so appreciated. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people watching this video that really appreciate your thoughts on taxi that will probably give a lot of people, including me, a different way to think about taxi. I just wish you continued success, and we'll see you on the next video that I find you on YouTube somewhere. So
Thanks. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Okay, so you heard how much Greg submits. You heard how much he spent on forwards. And you learned how much he was actually forwarded and his ratios there. And you learned how few responses he got from all those forwards. But you also learned how many placements he got from those 12 connections that he made through Taxi. Now, I've had about 100 placements just this year with exclusive and non-exclusive music libraries, although I paid $0 for those placements into those libraries. So, without further ado, let's get to what all my personal experience, my interviews, and my research with Taxi has led me to on this decision to pay or not to pay Taxi for another year and write more for briefs or not.
Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please.
I've decided I'm going to go for one more year with Taxi. And pay close attention to these reasons why. The biggest reason I will be doing this is because I did not do what I said I was going to do last year. I was thinking I might write 5 to 10 things per month, specifically for briefs, just like Greg does. But I didn't. 2021 was crazy, and I had a lot of production going on for exclusive libraries that were suddenly taking my stuff, and most of this happened after I joined Taxi, and they were gobbling up all the songs that I had, and I was busy trying to fill all those libraries, which was a good thing. Plus, I was finishing a master's degree, And I have weekly clients that I serve. It was enough to keep up with all that. And per my first review of Taxi, I was like, why do I need to be doing Taxi if I've got all this stuff going on? I already had libraries to feed and produce for and get stuff to. And I was only doing what I wanted to do musically, which is great. You may think, hey, if you're getting all these placements into these libraries, why use Taxi at all? Isn't that the whole point of Taxi? Just keep doing that. Why do anything else? Oh, don't worry. I'm going to keep pitching to my libraries and doing what I want to do musically and making the albums I want to make, all of that. The second reason I'm doing Taxi for another year is I personally got a lot out of it. Yeah, nothing that I submitted to Taxi was signed by Taxi Connections. Of the 4 songs that I sent in that were written specifically for briefs, all 4 were signed to libraries in 2021. 3 were accepted into one of my exclusive libraries pretty easily, and 1 was accepted into a non-exclusive library that I have been working to try to get in for years. These are 4 songs I would not have written if it weren't for Taxi and writing for these briefs under these deadlines. I currently have a song I just submitted and it was returned to me already, but I know that's going to fit into one of my libraries. But I wouldn't have that song either if it wasn't for writing for that particular pitch. Do you see where I'm going with this? What if I had followed my initial plan and submitted 5 songs per month? By this time, I'd have almost 60 new songs in my catalog of all different kinds of genres that I wouldn't have written otherwise. Afro house, Middle Eastern trap, light drama, tension accordion. These are styles I never would have thought about in a million years for writing songs for, but are all now part of my catalog. Plus, they were fun to write. And yes, anyone can go to the Taxi briefs online and see them, but you can't pitch to them unless you are a Taxi member. And we all know a deadline makes you get stuff done. Otherwise, you might just make something for a Taxi brief that you saw and say, oh, I could do a song like that, and start working on it, and then eventually just go, you know what? I just don't want to put any more time into this. There's no really reason to. So having a deadline and writing a brief for that deadline is a good thing. Okay, let's get to the third and final reason why I'm going to keep using Taxi for another year. And that's just because everybody I've been talking to in interviews, Ed Hartman, who I talked to in an earlier interview, Greg, and Tamara Bubble, who I'm going to be talking to in my next interview. You're going to like this one. They all are using Taxi as a way to have community, a way to get to the road rally every year, a way to write for briefs, and that can generate new catalog. They laugh when you say it's a lot of money because to them, one good TV placement of $1,000 covers all that they would spend on the Taxi membership and the fees to send to every brief. They're just business expenses to these people. It's all a write-off. It's all money that's spent towards moving you to the future. And if you don't use the things, the tools, like I didn't use enough of the briefs to write more catalog and to try to get more forwards, then it's on me for not using the service. The people who aren't happy with paying are the people who really don't use it correctly. They don't do what they said they were going to do. They don't pay attention to the road rally, or they don't get into the community. They just don't use it after paying $200 or $300 for it. And then a year goes by and they go, well, I didn't get anything out of Taxi. Well, they likely tried to throw a few songs in that kind of were close to the briefs, but didn't really work and got tired of getting rejected. And like I said in my last video, it can be not such a smart move to pay money for something that you can do yourself. The problem is most people aren't going to do it for themselves. The problem is you're not going to challenge yourself to write in a lot of different genres. If you do, then cool. You won't ever need Taxi. I don't really need Taxi, but it is another thing that prompts me to write. It is a catalyst for more good songs that I can have in my catalog. So it's going to be part of my strategy for 2022. You can look back in a year and I'll give you the update on how things happened. But for now, that's the plan. Take a look at my original video here on Taxi. I still have a lot of major and minor grumbles about it, but hey, I'm going to try it for another year to grow my catalog and grow my connections. Thanks for watching.